Made a purchase a little while ago. Got myself a dry suit at a secondhand. I spent $800 on my new BCD and this dry suit, so I got a really good deal. But when you get a really good deal, especially with a used dry suit, you can pretty much guarantee that it doesn't fit you perfectly. And the guy who owned this before is just a couple inches shorter than me. I am a freak of nature at 6'6", and this sucks. My head does not get in there. I was kind of hoping that my smaller gut would make a difference, but it's less and less small. So, yeah, and I'm just kind of limited. It's to the crotch and it won't go any higher. I'm trying to get this head seal over my head. So I'm gonna wait for Nathan to come back, and he's gonna help me shove this over. Cause you're useless. You're not even help me at all. Come on, up. Yeah. Okay, let's go actually, just actually. Like a little girl. All right, I got the neck seal on. Harbor Master helped me get it over my head. It was like being born all over again. This thing is so tight that I feel a little nice and constricted in my breathing, which is great when you're about to go diving. But of course, it's got to stay dry, and these are neoprene seals, so they're intense to put on. Yeah, it's a lot. There's a few tricks, baby powder and all that. I tried a few things, and yeah, eventually got it. The bonus tip is, if you're trying to fit into a guy's suit who's a bit bigger and a bit shorter than you, you're not allowed wearing pants. So I'm going underwear only under this thing. Hopefully I don't freeze.
How much length do you want?
All right, Nathan. Do you see where that small blue and silver clamp is? It's clamped to the two pieces I'm keeping. Now there's a piece that goes on past that. One of the long ones. So there's two long ones. One of the long ones has to be cut off. That one right there, the thicker one. No,
This one right
don't. The long one down, that one. So that needs to be cut through, and the bit needs to be removed. These are old logging chains. They make decent mooring if you want to save a couple $100, because the galvanized long link is very expensive, and it's not quite as thick as this. So this isn't galvanized, but it's thicker. It'll probably last the same amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's underwater. The galvanization isn't really gonna do too much anyways.
Well, it does a little bit, but it usually gets you an extra year.
Better
Maybe
thicker
two.
than Galvi.
Yeah, but these are only good for like, 5 years conservatively. So I've seen them go as long as like 8 or 10, but 5 years we want to start thinking about replacing this. But 5 years, hopefully I'll be long gone from here, eh?
That's the hope.
All
Somewhere
right,
warm.
let's go cut this and get this done. Look how long his cigarette is. That's how long you can tell that took to cut through.
That's how thick it is. It's in.
Yeah, don't twist that up too much. Just keep it tight. No, just leave it on.
Oh, you want to keep the length?
You keep that all on. All right, so you try to do as much of your prep work set up before you go down there. We're setting this up on a 2-ton block that's already down there. The mooring chain fell off of it several years ago. Someone didn't dive. It's important to dive your moorings every year and check on them, and they lost it, and yeah, they have no claim to it now. It's been ages. Once it's on the bottom of the ocean, it belongs to the Queen, I think.
Finders keepers.
Yeah, so we're gonna steal it from the Queen, and we're gonna run this chain through. Now the logging chain, one link is almost long enough, one's length, but I got two. It's gonna go through the block, come out the other side, and on these giant hoops here is where we've shackled one big 3/4, and then we put another 3/4 swivel. This is usually the first thing to fail, so it's nice to go a little bit big on those if you can. 3/4 over here, 7/8 thimble, and then 1-inch poly steel. And usually, ideally, in an ideal world, you would do chain enough to get through the block, which is 6 or 7 feet, 8 feet to be safe, and then you do 12 more feet for the tide around here. So if you're counting, that's about 20 feet of chain. Now 20 feet of chain, long link, 1/2 inch or 5/8 or whatever, that I think it's in the $250-300 range, so it's not cheap. So it's just nice to do it up with some cheaper materials. Now this float is like $400, and unfortunately we can't cheap out on that. I tried finding a used one. There's just none on the market. And Transport Canada or the Coast Guard. Coast Guard stipulates it has to be official type balls, and that's the cheapest one I could get. Which I think I got a little ripped because I'm pretty sure I've seen them smaller than that. But
Coast Guard approved.
it's Coast Guard approved. They don't know or care what's on the bottom. That's for your own convenience, but they do care about what's on the top. So it has to have your name, phone number, and it has to be a Coast Guard approved float. Seems I'm telling people this information all the time, so I figured I'd put it in a YouTube video.
He is down there. Now that Simon's down, making lots of bubbles. Looks sturdy enough.
Oh, fucking hell. There we go. Got it. Nice. It's a little wet down there. And surprisingly warm. Doors are locked because I know better. Yeah, nice try. I know. You're not going in there. All right, now the mooring's all set up. Let's talk a little bit about moorings and what kind of space they occupy. Now, the mooring is, it's like somewhere in between anchoring your boat and tying your boat up at a dock. It's safe-ish, but you got to do things properly. So there are 4 main components of a mooring ball. Well, let's talk about them. We have our block at the bottom. We have our chain. We have our rope. And we have our float. The block, in most cases, is either a 1 or a 2-ton concrete block with a 4-inch hole through the center and an iron hoop on top. The iron hoop on top is to float and move the block around. The hole is where you put the chain through to actually secure your mooring. And the block weight depends largely on the size of your boat. For instance, Old Dog or Perihelion will always take a 2-ton block. But if you had a 30-foot boat or smaller, a 1-ton block is more than enough. Now, the chain, I like to use minimum 1/2-inch long link galvanized chain. In this case, we use 3/4-inch non-galvanized logging boom chain. I will go through the block, like I said, shackle onto itself, and then up 12 feet to compensate for the tide. At that point, I like to put a shackle and a swivel and another shackle, and then I tie onto the rope. Now, the swivel I put at that point because that is the nice medium between no barnacles, no mussels, and no sea anemones like to grow there because that bit will touch the bottom at every tide cycle. Now, those shackles, we make sure to lash them down with stainless steel wire. We used to use the plastic zip ties, but we found that they fail quite a bit. So the stainless steel wire works a lot better. Now for the rope, we make sure we put a thimble, galvanized as well, and 1-inch poly steel is usually about the minimum you want to do. We use this because it's cheaper than going all chain and it has a longer lifespan than the chain. Usually you will have to replace the chain every 5 to 8 years, and polysteel can last forever. If it's not chafing on anything, if the swivel keeps working and it doesn't come unraveled, it'll work forever. So we run that up, and then I usually go through the ball, although some people like to stop before the ball, put some more chain through the ball to stop chafing there. In my experience, the chafing at the ball is not usually a problem. Now the ball has, like I said, quite expensive. run by the Coast Guard. They like to make sure things are uniform and easy to read. You got to put your phone number and a contact name on the ball, and in some places also dictate that you have to have a home address there as well. And they do that because that is basically your registration. That's as registered as you get for most places here in Canada. There is no formal registration for mooring balls in most locations, and if there is, it is dictated by that particular harbor. So for us here on Gabriola, that's not a factor. We just put down a ball, you put your name and phone number on it, and that's it. If somebody needs to use your ball, they can, but they are required to make a attempt at contacting you. That doesn't mean they have to contact you, and that doesn't mean really anything. But in an emergency, they can tie up to your ball, especially in a lot of moorages, a lot of anchorages. There isn't space to anchor anymore because there's a lot of mooring balls. And so people will tie to balls. Now, it's a risky endeavor because who knows when the last time that person dove their ball or checked their ball. I've tied up to ball and lost my boat as a result, and had to go float it off of a reef on the next tide cycle. So it's not always a great option, and it's in everyone's interest if there's good lines of communication between the people sitting on your ball and the owner of the ball. It is not legal to rent out a ball. Technically speaking, it's not legal at all in this country. However, it happens. In fact, I'm, renting the ball that I'm on right now, and it's just a thing that happens under the counter. As a citizen, you're entitled to one ball, and I know a lot of folks who have two, but they're a married couple, and they get around it that way. Like I said, they're crowding up anchorages, and all of this is quite contentious, but there you go. So mooring balls are a great solution for keeping your boat safe, especially during the winter season or where dock space is expensive. But it doesn't mean that it's foolproof. You need to get out and check on your boat regularly. Lines chafe, moorings fail. If you don't dive it every year and check it, it will fail, and that chain will rust through eventually. I've seen shackles wind their way out. I've seen rope chafe through, and I've seen chain rust right through. So you do want to check it regularly and be safe. And it's nothing worse than getting that call at 3 o'clock in the morning because your boat is on a reef. No fun. Anyway, hopefully that was helpful to you guys. Let me know in the comments what else you'd like to know about the liveaboard lifestyle here on the Pacific Northwest.